Good morning, Predicted Trades family. I hope everybody had a great weekend. Hope we were able to get outside and have some fun. Hope things have calmed down with the hurricane that is no longer a hurricane. Hopefully the East Coast folks are doing all right. So let's dig in. Let's get on ES here. There we go. So in a quick review of last week, we were pretty much range bound. It was a end of month, end of quarter week, OPEX, or not OPEX, sorry, Quad Witch. So, not surprisingly, we were range bound, but that range was so wide that it provided some great legs every day. On Monday, we had a little pop up to squeeze tops, down to the bottom. On Tuesday, we open at those squeeze tops, fall to the bottom. On Wednesday, we stay near the bottom and ride right back up to the top. Thursday, right back down to the bottom. And then on Friday, and also on, what was it? Tuesday, we got a new low of year. Thursday, we pushed a little bit lower. Overnight on Wednesday, we set a new low of year again, but then on Friday, we took that out. Now, our new low of year is at that 35.71.75. Also, I had a zone here of support from some big daily wicks in the past that spans from 35.96 down to 35.87. We pretty much arrived at that zone on Friday. Overnight we dipped a little lower, but now we're holding this zone and pushing off of it. So that zone's definitely important. Would be interesting to see if we have another dip to it. But before we start talking about what we have in store for today, let's take a quick look at the economic calendar. This week is a little busy, and next week is very interesting. So, let's start with this week. We do have some PMI data coming out today. We have some more data at 10 a.m. on construction, manufacturing, some Fed speakers. Then tomorrow, another Fed speaker. We have some ADP data coming out. Well, some job openings and quits. The next day is the big ADP report. So a little bit of economic data today and tomorrow. And then Wednesday will be a very interesting report. The ADP employment report is, every week we have our jobless claims to track how well employment's going, and then once in a while we get an ADP report that's a little more comprehensive. So we'll see how that data comes out. Wednesday morning will probably have an effect. We have some PMI as well. Just like today, we have manufacturing PMI. So Wednesday we'll have services PMI. We have jobless claims, as always, Fed speakers, and then non-farm payroll, which can sometimes lead to some interesting moves. We also have some more unemployment data, labor force participation, and more Fed speakers. Next week, one thing we definitely want to keep in mind, we have an FOMC on Wednesday. It doesn't look like we're going to have Powell speaking after the minutes come out at 2 p.m. That reminds me that today We have a emergency Fed meeting that's closed doors. And I think that data is, or there might be a report on that at around 11:30, so we might see some interesting movements there. But this week we have this FOMC. I'm sorry, geez. Next week we have that FOMC, and then the next day we have CPI. So back-to-back big economic data coming out. But that's next week. Let's focus on what we got for today. Real quick, just for fun, gonna throw on, here, there we go, our Beast tool. Just because some of our newer folks had a question last night as I posted some screenshots and some data that, some new folks had some questions around futures, so I thought I'd just give a little spiel real quick to say that our Beast tool works wonders on futures. The moment that futures open, we kind of have our roadmap laid out for the day. You can see that futures open and bounced up to our opening range sell zone, where we usually find resistance, and then it fell down to the opening range buy zone, where we usually find support. Then we get our bounce back up, and we hold open. Bounce the sell zone, hold open. Now let's try to push through the sell zone. We run into a squeeze top, back to that open level. That open level cutting right through this zone of support that I've drawn. This drawing right here is not part of the tool. It's just a zone of support. But we push off that again, push through our sell zone, through our previous high, and now we've gotten up over a key level and starting to push this 30-minute squeeze to firing. Usually, as I like to teach, whenever we have a big kind of sell-off day, or at least sell-off and close, statistically speaking, we usually see some kind of gap up. Now, there's plenty of times where we get that gap up and then some economic data comes out to dump us. But today's economic data comes out after the open. So should be fine to keep holding this trend on the low volume of pre-market. We could easily start to settle back to this top zone or overnight open, and retest this zone of support. Should this zone start to give out, we're going to come down to test the overnight lows and our opening range buy zone. We also have a little 1 hour squeeze that is forming. Man, I am all over the place today. Apologies. We have a little 1 hour squeeze that's starting to form, the base of which is right at that overnight low, the top of which we can't quite see because it is just starting to form. But since we have another hour before we get to open, we'll have a couple other candles to understand how that 1 hour squeeze will look. So overall for today, we're on a nice uptrend. Yes, we did have a bunch of selling, and we set new low of year. So I'm not going to say, oh, well, we're going to go up today. It has to happen. We could very easily open, selling pressure still be strong and send us back down to retest these things. We could break these things and head lower. But overall, just going to speak to the price action that we have. Right now, we have a decent little overnight trend that's forming, kind of in an up channel. Let's see if at open, we just have a little dip to test that uptrend and then try to continue back up to the range that we were in last week. If we start to run into resistance and pull back and can't hold this top zone or this trend line from the overnight lows, then we're likely coming down to test this zone of support. And should we slip through that back to the overnight lows, if we just keep slipping on past that, we still have our beast levels below this purple hash line right near 3550 and our next key level 3541. And should we slip past that, we have our outer shaded region, the bottom of which is at 3500. So we've kind of got our target levels to the downside, we've got our target levels to the upside. If we can get our continuation, want to see us get back above this 3639 and get on up to our outer shaded region. The daily 8 is this cyan line that steps down. So the daily 8 is just outside of our outer shaded region, but pretty much right back now in the middle of the zone that we were in last week. The daily 21, a bit out of reach today, but it's slowly making its way in, almost inside of 3800. It's at 3815 today. Not saying we get there, just to track where the daily 21 sits. If we do start to see some buyers take control for the start of the month. NQ. NQ definitely got beat up last week. And pretty much just sold right down to almost 11,000. Stopped a little bit shy up in these squeeze clouds. Overnight we did slip below that 11,000, but now we're back above. And it looks like it's just a hair above our opening range buy zone. So let's see on NQ if it can also hold its up channel from the overnight session. If we open and take a dip, looking for that trend line to hold, looking for the bottom shaded region just below 11,000 to hold as well, to try to continue this trend to the upside. If we can get going through our open range sell zone, we have our purple hash right at that key level, around 11,200, and the daily 8 is in our outer shaded region, just above 11,300. If we start to dip and lose this overnight trend, we're going to come down and test our buy zone and this 10,950. If that starts to give out, pre-market low or overnight lows, and making our way down to the purple hash line or the outer sell zone, the destination sell zone. We do have our third Keltner down in that zone. So overall, we know the range on NQ. If we start to give out where we're going, and if we can hold, we're going to get back up, or try to get back up to last week's range. The Ruddy. For the Ruddy. Overall, as far as all the indices, the Ruddy held up very well on sell-offs during the week. It set its low with ES on Wednesday, but then it didn't take out that low and set new lows. And in fact, with our gap up, we're well above the lows. We're actually almost back to where we opened on Friday. So overall, the Ruddy is showing a little bit of relative strength. I'll go ahead and just turn this off so we can see price action a little better. Camel. So already very much still in last week's range, did not break down for new lows, and holding above this very key 1656. We did slip it a little bit, but you can see on Wix we got down to it and bounced. We got down to it and held and bounced. Didn't even test it, and Friday didn't even get to it. Overnight, barely wicked it. So very key level. As long as we're above this on small caps, I'm at least leaning bullish on small caps and potentially the rest of the market. Once this starts to give out is when we could see some very interesting selling. But overall, Ruddy held up well. Let's see, like everything else, if it can hold its uptrend from overnight. Basically looking for it to kind of stay above 1670 today for upside if we do have a dip. And for upside targets, if we just keep trucking, 1700 is the first target. The daily 8 as well, since we fought to it but kept rejecting. Past that, Friday's high, and the top of this, let's see, 2-hour squeeze. We still have our 4-hour squeeze intact. That's the next target. But if market keeps slipping, you know, I'm expecting to see it come back and test 1670. And then this 1656. On to YM. YM made it down to our 28,850 on Friday, slipped it a little bit, and overnight as well, but back above. So kind of looking for that to at least be support if we do have a dip. That kind of overlaps with its trend line from lows at open. So if we do have a dip, looking for that to hold. If it starts to give out, coming down to test this pre-market base and then the overnight lows at the bottom of this hour squeeze. But if we just keep trucking, first target, that cycle level of 29,000, getting back above that, which was kind of the floor for last week during cash sessions. If we can get through 29,000, back to this 315. We got above it just a little on Friday, but we definitely struggled at it, and it just kept giving resistance until we finally gave out. So past that 29,315, the daily 8 is at 29,470. And yeah, we could actually get to the daily 8. It'd have to be a pretty strong day up, but let's just see if we can get back into the range we were in last week and back above that 29,000 today. If we slip down below that pre-market low, we have cycle level 28,500 and the third Keltner sitting at 28,432. Apple. Apple was definitely one of the weak ones last week and drug the market down with her. Excuse me. Even on Wednesday when the market rallied quite well, Apple just barely got up out of its squeeze clouds. Did not take off to the top of the range of the week. Apple had that blip come out that they're lowering their production numbers. So, not surprised to see some selling based on that news. But we did just kind of reset back to some key levels. This 138 and 138.8, a key zone of support that we fell directly to, stopped right at 138 on Friday. Overnight, we got a little lower, but now we're about to open above it. We need Apple to stop being so weak and dragging everything down. Apple's, one of the biggest names, if not the biggest. So we need it to stop slipping, find its feet and start to base for any upside. If it does keep rejecting this zone today, we fell to it for support. If we can't find support there and get a price acceptance in it and above it, then we're likely to reject, come back to the overnight low or pre-market low. And if that starts to give out ultimately this week, we're probably going to slip down to the next key zone at 131 and 132.5. But if we can get back above this zone and turn it into support, looking to get back through 140 with the goal of getting to that 144, where we somewhat did try to base before giving out and then rejecting, right? AMD, we saw MU report after the bell with a decent reaction and some interest to the upside. We saw chips rally quite well on Friday before the whole market gave out, and now right back to about where we opened on Friday. So let's see if they want to keep rotating into chips. If so, looking for AMD to get back above 65, back above Friday's high, and a bid to get back to this daily 8. If we keep slipping, next up, 61 and 60, if 62 gives out. Amazon. So Amazon had some, decent strength last week. When we rallied, it did try to it got up to the daily 8. Thursday, when we sold back, it tried to hold up, and on Friday, basically tried to hold up the same levels again. Did not set a new low of week, excuse me, from that Wednesday low, but this morning did set a new low from that Wednesday and the previous Friday. But right back up off of that, having a little bit of a gap up and not too far from where it opened on Friday. So some decent strength in Amazon. Let's see if, oh, get out of here. Come on, I hate it when it does this. There we go. Oh man, now it's just going to keep doing it. I swear. Come on, Toss. What are you doing to me? All right. So this is probably a 4-hour squeeze down here, giving Amazon support near that 112. If it can continue to hold, that 112, 113, looking for it to get back above 115. And a journey to get back to this daily 8 at 116.5, and the top of the 4-hour squeeze at 118. But it might wait to do that if we're going to go back up. It might make it more of a 2-day journey so this daily 21 can catch up. But if we start to roll back and lose that 110, 111, then we're likely going down to that 108 where the third Keltner sits. BA. BA, also one of the weaker names, just continuing to set lower lows, lower highs. Wednesday overnight set that low, then Thursday hit a lower low, then Friday hit a lower low. So we definitely need BA to start to find its feet. We are at that third Keltner, the downside. A number of things are down at third Keltner and have been near in between second and third Keltner, so we're getting maybe potentially a little oversold. Let's see if we can hold that 120, start to work our way back up to 125, kind of Friday's highs, and then a bid to get back to that daily 8, which will be near 130. If we start to give out 120, 118, 116 next. Cat. Cat with some relative strength. Set that Wednesday low and then stayed at the top of its weekly range. Actually kind of set a, it kind of had a lower range and then popped up and held a higher range. So like the relative strength in Cat, pretty much stayed right near the daily 8 in that second Keltner. So for the upside today, looking forward to get back to that daily 8 to these squeeze tops. If we can push higher this week, looking forward to get back to the daily 21 up at 175. But we got to get through that 170 first and that daily 8 and squeeze tops. If we start to roll back over, then we're going to retest last week's low. That's 62 and 160 at the bottom of the squeeze. Coin, gonna start covering again, added it back to the list because it had some amazing strength last week. From that Friday, was trying to start a nice uptrend, and even on Tuesday selling back, tried to hold the lows. Gapped down, shot right back up, and with the market on Thursday falling hard on some of that economic data, it just dropped right back to these lows to rally up hard on Friday and stay up. So coin with some relative strength if the market is going to start to see some upside this at the beginning of this month. I like this play to the upside. Coin today, if we can get a pop and continue up. Looking to get back to Friday's highs at the top of the squeeze. Test that daily 21 and daily 15 around 168, 169. And if we can continue up higher, looking forward to get back to the daily 50 that it just rejected recently near 172, 173. If the market rolls over, not really dying to play this to the downside, but pre-market low first, then these lows around 61 and 60 at the bottom of the squeeze. Google. Interesting print there, Google. Google got below 100 last week, and that was the resistance. XLC has been weak overall. But in selling off, just basically got back to the week's lows, not really diving through them. We did print a little lower overnight near that 95. But then we have a nice uptrend, getting us back to 96.5 here. Well, let's see if we can open above 96, if we can hold it. If not, we're coming back to retest that 95 at the bottom. But if we can hold 96, then it's a fight to get back to 100 up here with the, Friday's low and high to deal with, this daily 8. And, not dying to play Google or Facebook with XLC as weak as it's been lately, but if we are going to start to turn around, maybe it plays a quick catch-up. GS. Financials also tried to hold up pretty decent, actually. Progressively higher lows. Well, let's see if we can stay above that 293. If we start to slip it, coming back to that 299 for a test. And last week's low, which aligns with this larger time frame squeeze, bottom 4 hour, looks like. If we can get going to the upside, looking to get back to that psych level of 300. The daily 8, which will be stepping down pretty close to 300 in Friday's high. And if we can push higher this week, back to that 315 where the daily 21 sits. JPM, a little weaker, but did stay above those lows from last week. So looking like we have some support here at 104, 104 and a half. That can continue to hold. Looking for it to get back up to 108, top of this squeeze, daily 8, and past that to 21. If it starts to give out 104, third Keltner's at 102, and psych level of 100. Hate to say it, but Facebook Meta actually held up a little better than Google last week. And in a way, kind of a head and shoulders that if you count this overnight on Monday and how we held that kind of all week. So let's see if we can continue to stay above 135, 134. That base from the lows of last week, not counting the overnight low. If we can continue to hold that 134, 135, looking to get back to 140 where that daily 8 sits, 141, Friday's high. And if we can push past this squeeze at 142, back to the daily 21, up near 147 and a half. Microsoft. Big key level on Microsoft, this 132.86. We held it at the lows, we held it at the lows. Sucking it just a little, pre-market at the 32, but right back above, even wicked back. So ultimately looking for that 232 to hold, 232.86, basically just 283. Looking for that to hold and continue to send us higher. If it starts to give out, we're talking psych level 230 and the third Keltner at 227. But if we can continue to the upside, looking to get back to the daily 8, which will be around 238. Friday's highs around 240, 241. And if we can start to, or if we can continue up through the squeeze top, the daily 15 and 21 are right around it at 244 and 247-ish. Netflix. One of the strongest names last week. Just basically stayed under this trend line at around that 222 until the overnight gap up and took off right back up to the top of this range. But with the market, slipping Thursday and Friday, not surprised to see Netflix come back down. And it did a great job of holding its daily moving averages. Still holding them pre-market and starting to pop. Basically, as long as we're above this daily 8 at 235 and this daily 21 at 233. Still looking to play this long with the goal of getting back up through last week's highs. The high from a couple of weeks ago, up at 250. We do have a daily and a 2-day squeeze up there. If we take out this daily, that 2-day is actually starting up near 255, so we can push higher before we run into that 2-day. If we start to give out these moving averages, if the market just keeps slipping First stop, that daily 50 at 231 and a third, 230 psych level, and then back to this range near 220, 222. The video. Again, as mentioned, we had MU earnings and saw a good reaction, hence a rotation into chips. The video shot up and had a nice run to that daily 8, but then came back, at least holding above its open and the week's lows. Even in the overnight prints, still holding above Thursday's lows. So, if we can continue to stay above pre-market low and Thursday's lows right around 120, 119 and a half, looking to get up to the daily 8 again, near 125, through last week's highs, and a bid to get up to this 4-hour squeeze top near 128. Past that, psych level 130 and the daily 21. But if we roll back over, lose last week's lows, and this 118 at the bottom of the squeeze, then we're likely going to 115 where the third Keltner sits. QQQ, like I said, within Q was one of the weaker names last week. Progressively lower lows. We tapped that third Keltner pre-market at the lows and coming right back up for a little gap up above where we closed on Friday. Let's see if we do try to go fill the gap. Would love to see 265 hold, but if it can't, then we can come down to test that pre-market low and that third Keltner at the bottom of that hourly squeeze. But if we can continue to the upside, looking to get back to 270 and maybe even 275, Friday's high. The daily 8 will be stepping down to that. And the daily 21 slowly getting closer to 285. I guess downside if we do take out pre-market low at that third Keltner in this 1-hour squeeze, big psych level 260 would be next. Snow. I am going to cover because it's an interesting setup. I'll give us a 2-hour 90-day just to go back to see that we had a gap up on previous earnings. Come on, load it. There we go. So we had our earnings back in August. We had a large gap up from 160 from 160 up to like 185. So a big old gap up in the selling that we've been dealing with. It only came down so far to fill the gap. It did not complete it. In fact, let me extend this over just to help visualize it. We came down, did not quite fill that gap, started another rally right back to 205. We came down with the market and held that same remainder of the gap and just kind of settled. We're getting tighter and tighter in a wedge on the daily 50 with this zone of support. So if the market can start to see a little bit of an upside to start the month, we could see snow start to make its way back up through the squeeze top and daily moving averages to get back to these recent highs. Also, if the market just keeps slipping, we could get a gap fill to the downside back to 160. So we're actually at a pretty good spot right in between at around 175. So I like this setup and going to keep an eye on it. But we do have a 2-hour and 4-hour squeeze stacked around us from 175 to 165. So we could stay range bound while we wait for the market to make some moves. SPX. Let me get back down to normal time frame. SPX made it down to our 35.87. Now I'm going to be having a little bit of a gap up, 30 points. So going to be opening around 36.15, right? Let's see on a pullback if it can hold 3600. If not, coming back to test this 35.87, 85. But would like to see some support there to pop back up to this 36.45. Friday's highs, and maybe even to this gap fill zone where the daily 8 will be stepping inside of near 36.80. If we slip further and lose that, first stop down would be 3600, 35.87, 85, and then that third Keltner near 35.71. Next big key level, 35.23. SPY. Was mostly contained in this 4-hour squeeze, but pushed down and closed at it on Friday, so it starts to open up to fire, and we get our reversal. As we've seen many times, SPY also hit that third Keltner in the overnight lows near the 355. If we start to slip on back and lose 360, 358, then likely coming to that 356, 355 lows for a retest at the bottom of these squeezes. But if we can continue and stay above that 358, 359, that overnight high, we can keep trucking back to this 362, past that 365, and that daily 8, which will be stepping down closer to that 365. And if we can keep going, that 370 right back at the top of the squeeze, back at this gap fill, and at last week's high of the range we were trapped in. Tesla. Tesla was decently strong last week, up when the market was going up, but then definitely started to give out. I think I saw a news blip that they missed deliveries. They also had an AI day on Friday, so you could be seeing some reaction to that. Gapping down pretty significantly, and getting down near that third Keltner actually kind of gave it a tap pre-market. For Tesla, let's see if that pre-market low, 248, 250, can give support. Start to send us back up to fill the gap and get back into the range from Friday. So yeah, it'll be interesting if we can get above that 255, 257.5 early. We could see just a good continuation to fill the gap. To get back to 265, past that 270, 275. But if it keeps slipping and remains weak, we've got 250, the third Keltner, which will probably be 7 down near 245, and 240, which would be next. Cover UVXY real quick, then VIX, and wrap this up. So on UVXY, as you can see, we are wedging and in a number of squeezes that are stacked up here. Overall for the week, let's see if UVXY can start to give out this wedge line to the downside, give up this daily 8, and start to make its way back to the daily 21, down at about 11 and a quarter. We also have the daily 50 down at 10 and a half-ish. But if we do continue to hold above 12 bucks in this trend line, then wouldn't be surprised to see it come back up from that 12 to 13 to test trend line from the highs. If we start to get through there, then we're going to test those highs in a bid to get back to that daily 200 above near 14. VIX. Yeah, VIX last week remained elevated and got acceptance up here above 30 for upside today and this week. Would like to see VIX get back down through its daily 8 to 30 and start to push down further to about that 29, 28 range where the daily 8 sit, or I'm sorry, the daily 21 sits around 28 and a half. But if we're going to see further downside, we're likely going to see VIX stay above 30, maybe even hold above 31 in this daily 8, and bounce back up to the highs of the range from last week, near 33, 33 and a half, maybe even up to our 35 and a third. So that's it for prep. Hopefully this is helpful for everybody. If you're new to predictive trades, definitely come check us out. You can join our server for free. There's a link in the description. And starting this week and running for the next 2 weeks, we are going to be doing a small account challenge. It will be with our members, so if you're interested, you'll have to sign up. But we look forward to having a fun little small account challenge with everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck today. And remember, no waste, no feast.